Welcome to Activations with JJ Ascension Diaries, Part 12. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of my Ascension Diaries. If you have never heard this series before, this is one that I started in order to share my own personal experiences with Ascension. And I've had a lot of fun just telling you about some of the things I've gone through in my life related to shifting in vibration and raising my consciousness and just weird and random things with even timelines and time lapses and parallel lives. So it's just an exciting ride. And I hope that when I share these things with you, it kind of validates maybe some of the strange, weird experiences you've had. I guess that's the one way I could define them. Some of them are just very beautiful experiences, but some of them are just odd. So I'm really excited to be here with you today. And I do have to tell you, it was really interesting because as I was creating this episode, I realized I was on episode number 12. And all of a sudden, I just got this feeling of intuition, like, this is your last Ascension Diaries episode for now. And I was like, no, I want to keep doing it. But I mean, it was really my higher self telling me. So I was telling myself that it was my last Ascension Diaries episode. There's some other kind of content that you all need and that I need to talk about. So this will be my last one for a while, but if you haven't listened to all of them, yay, you still get to go back and listen to 1 through 11. If you've listened to all of them, you can always re-listen, but you can also look forward to whatever it is that I come up with as far as the series goes after this. So here we go. I know exactly what I'm talking about today. It's actually related to the energy update for this week. So the week of September 27th, 2021, I brought through an ancient culture that was not Atlantean or Lemurian. It was one that existed before that. I know definitely that's what it was. They didn't actually tell me their name. A lot of times the energies I bring through don't necessarily want to identify themselves with a name because the naming things is very 3D. They were a vibration, and I know they came through with their vibration, so that's how they identified themselves. But they did talk about how they became so obsessed with accumulating wealth that they lost sort of the place where they were in their heart, and they started moving into more mind-centered actions. And I think that's basically where I got the inspiration to do this particular episode. Although I will say I've had tons of synchronicities and downloads regarding this subject over the last little while. So what I want to talk about is basically like abundance and manifesting and prosperity and wealth, all terms that can be quite loaded and that we can have lots of baggage regarding because so many of us come from, people that lived before us were the children of people who held some definite blocks regarding wealth, some different non-abundant thinking, non-abundant mindsets. I know that with the Depression era, many people felt a lot of scarcity, and that was driving their actions. And then we went right into the time of working 9 to 5 and that job. And a lot of people, though, are shifting. I have a close friend who got tired of the 9 to 5. It actually manifested as a midlife crisis. And what they decided to do was quit and start their own business as a freelancer, which I'm sure many of you have maybe done or thinking about doing. And they were able to do that just due to the circumstances they had. But what they're doing is they're rejecting this idea that we have to trade our time for money. And I really feel like that's what we're stepping into. So that's just kind of my first opening idea that I want to present to you regarding making a living and how to earn money and how to sustain ourselves in this time period. Because the new earth is going to be different. And I know I've talked about this before. So for those of you who are faithful listeners to the podcast, you've heard me say that before. We're shifting into a time where it won't be trading our time for money. Passive income is huge. One of my friends does cryptocurrency and trades, and I know somebody else who literally has figured out a system with the stock market so they honestly check their computer 2 times a day, and they have all the free time in the world, which I think is really fascinating. And I know a lot of people are trying to get to that point. And here's the deal. It's possible, right? Because we can manifest any of it. But in my particular field, as I do, readings and some one-on-one sessions with people. And by the way, if you haven't taken a look at our new website, please go visit it, activationswithjj.com. There's a link in the comment section here, or not in the comment section, but in the description of the video if you're listening to this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on my podcast, there's also a link in the show notes. So go check out the website. Would love to have you connect with me there. And the reason I bring that up is because I know a lot of my listeners do readings themselves. As an intuitive coach or as a psychic or a light worker, way shower, a healer. Lots of you guys I know are doing those things. So I went to create this website, and of course I'm opening myself up a little bit more to booking more sessions. And when you start doing things like that in the spiritual realm, it gets a little weird because you're like, oh, I feel kind of uncomfortable asking for money or asking for a certain amount of money. And I've learned a lot over the last, I would say 2 or 3 years about energy exchanges. And really that's what money is. It's a form of energy exchange. So the reason why I don't want to create an imbalance is because I know what it's like to have imbalance regarding energy. In other words, I don't know about you if you've ever experienced this in your life, but I've also had times where I start to feel very drained. Whether I'm in just a regular hourly pay or salary job, or if I'm doing a project, like a side project, maybe I'm doing a business, but there's not a lot of return on it yet. And what I've realized is that if I don't create an avenue for there to be an energy exchange towards me, like if I just volunteer, give freebie, and there's no energy exchange avenue for people to give back, then I start to feel stuck and I start to feel like something's off. And if you're in that situation, even with a 9-to-5 job where you are possibly giving more than you're receiving, it's time to move on, okay? I have a regular 9-to-5 job too. And I recently switched jobs because I completely and 100% felt like something was off. And when I tapped into it to kind of get guidance from my higher self, I knew the energy exchange was off. Another story I have is that I'm trying to think of just how to kind of paint the picture, but I had created like a group. It wasn't related to my activations with JJ, but I had created a group where people come together and they can, I facilitated like a group. It wasn't like group therapy, but it was a group discussion and, motivational type personal development stuff. But I was doing several hours a week, and I, again, had no way for there to be a return to me other than, there were some small ones, right? Like just people saying thank you, that's an energy exchange. There's social currency, which is like people following you on your social media. That's an energy exchange. People liking or commenting, that's an energy exchange. Okay, because it doesn't always have to be money. But I had none of that. And I was feeling totally drained and wiped out. And this project was not fun to me. Even though it was a really cool thing at the beginning, I was loving it. But I was like, what is going on here? And Spirit was like, you're putting out more than you're getting back. And so you're going to feel that imbalance. So here's the deal, everybody. Here's the lesson in that. Here's how it relates to wealth in this new earth, right? In this new earth system. Economics, right? Economics, new earth economics. I don't know. I'm not an expert in economics. But there always has to be a fair exchange of energy. And it's not going to look like what you think it does. So you're going to say to me, well, what about the people who are trading or, doing the stock market type stuff or doing passive income? How are they getting an energy exchange? Well, the energy exchange is going to come from one source, but the person is going to free themselves up to do healing work. Because what I've found on most of my friends who are doing this passive income, they've sought that out because they're ready to meditate more and to be out in nature more and to live a free lifestyle more. And they're holding space. They're holding space. When you create and hold space for a new type of lifestyle and you're a pioneer, that takes a lot of energy and you're putting it out into the atmosphere. And you're going to get something back. If it's passive income, that's fine. If it's something else, that's fine too. But you're going to get you need to make there a way for there to be a return. That's why people who find themselves in almost like poverty, there's some kind of a block in the energy exchange. There's some kind of block, because you might say to me, well, what about all the people who just sit around or who don't have passive income but live that lifestyle? Well, they're eventually going to feel there's something going to be wrong there, whether or not they get free food from somebody or they're getting shelter from somebody. If that energy exchanges, there's an imbalance, they're going to feel it. It's actually so hard for me. I'm finding it hard to get the right words out to describe this to you. And so I hope that I'm able to transmit energetically what I'm trying to say. But my point to you is I want you to look at your life and all the different ways that you're giving out your energy, whether it's a job or volunteering or even in your family situation. And I tell you what, when you feel like something's off, when you're feeling anxiety, or usually energy imbalances can manifest as anxiety, depression, those types of things. I mean, there's also chemical stuff, but I'm talking about it on like an energetic level. When that is happening in your life, you got to sit back and you got to, okay, where is the energy exchange off? And I mean, I'm not going to be able to tell you each specific person that's listening to this what their problem, what their issue is, what their imbalance is. I mean, you could book a session with me and we can walk through it. But I also believe you can intuit that for yourself. If you take the time to think about it, it will come to you what the issue is. So again, I think the big picture or the takeaway from it is this. I found that when I started creating avenues for me to be able to receive, that's when the energy came back into balance. Because those of us who are light workers are doing a ton of work that may not necessarily be like paid for, because we're doing it on behalf of the collective. So guess what's going to happen? The collective is going to give back to you if you create an avenue for income. And that's really what passive income is. Passive income is when you're receiving from the collective what you're doing for the collective. And that kind of blows my mind a little bit. And I want you to think about it and soak that in, because if it resonates with you, then it's probably something that needs to be on your radar. So that's kind of my 2 cents about energy exchanges and manifesting. I want to go back to something I talked about on the podcast. And I kind of want to tap into like my higher self, what my higher self would say about this. On the podcast for September 27th, that was the energy update with Ancient Ones. If you want to look it up, I'll put the link in the show notes here. On that podcast, this ancient culture gave advice. And they said, again, when you shift from seeking prosperity from a place of, not a heart-centered place, that's when you start to find greed and power struggles and all that stuff we don't want. Because I don't know about you, but I was raised to think that wealthy people were bad and they were evil, and that wealth led to the bad path down to hell. Okay? Lots of us who were raised in religious circumstances probably were taught the same thing, whether outright or just energetically or subconsciously. I know that I've worked through tons of subconscious beliefs regarding wealth, but I've been able to harness the power of manifesting very easily. And one way that I do it is just by writing out my goals, writing them out in a place I can see. So anyway, that's kind of a side tangent, but I'll do a whole series on manifesting. Let's do that, right? You'll just have to check back with me on that. But back to what I was talking about, being heart-centered and pursuing wealth. Here's the deal. Set the intention right now that there's 2 things I believe very strongly in. One is the flow of energy. Greed occurs when the flow of energy stops. Because when we're in flow, we're going to be in heart. When we're in flow, we're going to be in heart. That's the key. So as soon as you start accumulating and there's an energy imbalance, okay, whether maybe you're taking advantage of somebody or you're not allowing that wealth to flow, you're just sitting on it and accumulating it for the sake of accumulating it, that's when issues happen. That's when we move from a heart-centered culture into a mind-centered, ego-centered culture. We've seen it a million times, right? The divine feminine way of pursuing wealth and prosperity and abundance has to do with flow. The divine feminine is what we need to invite more in. We've been very much into a toxic masculine sort of energy. And if you've listened to me before, I don't always go on this masculine feminine stuff because it's duality and it's really putting things in boxes. But this is the easiest way for me to be able to put this to you. Okay, so if that bugs you, just figure out a different way to use, what different words to use. The yin and the yang, whatever. So when we start incorporating divine feminine, heart-centered seeking of abundance and prosperity in this culture and in our society, we will see everyone prosper and there won't be any imbalances. The system will naturally take care of itself. See, right now, a lot of people are seeking for outside structures to shift the systems. And if you listened to the energy update on the 27th of September, you will know that I said, and I channeled, the artists of the world will heal the systems and will fix the systems, not the governments. And that's because the artists of the world will inspire people to live from their hearts, will invite in the divine feminine, and will create this energy of abundance that has been lacking on the planet for a long time. So that's something else to ponder and think about. So to recap on this second part of what I was talking about, as we invite the divine feminine in and the heart-centered into our seeking of prosperity, we will see a flow occur that will prevent us from becoming egocentric with regards to our wealth, will help us avoid like an addiction to consumerism, an addiction to buying things. But I do want to help you know and understand it's important to keep that flow. So as you bring in money, you also need to spend it. I know that sounds really weird too. I got taught that. I was literally taught that. So it comes in, it goes out. It doesn't mean you don't need to save, but I need you to understand we've got to shift from the financial council of the planet from a 3D perspective, and we've got to shift into a more heart-centered financial approach, which I could probably create a couple more episodes on because I think it's needed, and I would love to channel that. So you'll have to look out for that too. So now I owe you 2 different podcasts. I just have to go back and remember. One about manifesting and one about heart-centered finances. Let's do that. All right. I really appreciate you joining me today for this final Ascension Diaries for a while. I may continue the series another time. I may create another series, but I promise it'll be just as fun. You'll get to know my journey in some way, shape, or form, and what comes out of the podcast will always be what you need because you've manifested listening to me here. This is because of you. Thank you for being here to hold space and co-create with me. As always, the divinity within me honors the divinity within you. Namaste.